We know that education is one of the surest ways to end poverty. In fact, for every year people are educated, their earnings increase by 10%. Educated women are more likely to have educated and healthy children. And educated families weather economic crisis and natural disasters better. The truth is, no country has ever succeeded in the long run without investing in its people. But for many, it isn't as simple as just going to school. Today, 250 million children don't know how to read, even though many have been to school.
In the early years of high school, I would leave my backpack behind in the locker and not take any homework home because I was so bored and disengaged with what was happening. And when I got assigned to the advanced courses in 11th grade, that was an intellectual and a life awakening for me. Students are put in low-level courses, they may misbehave, they may get low grades because they're disengaged and disinterested in what's happening. But when you move these missing students up to advanced courses, you activate their potential at a new level and you see incredible things come out of their work and their education. The mission of Equal Opportunity Schools is to ensure that all students are matched with challenging high school learning opportunities that will prepare them for their college goals. We work to close the access gaps to advanced placement and international baccalaureate programs. Most students are already in schools that have these programs that are doing a great job of preparing kids for college, but those programs are under capacity. And there's a set of kids, largely low-income students, students of color, who are under-identified and undermatched. And we work with those leaders to identify those students and make sure that they do get into the classes that they need and deserve in order to achieve their college goals.
A lot of people talking about this growing outrage today over a report that school districts around the nation are spending millions of tax dollars on courses training teachers about so-called white privilege. Pittsburgh alone spent nearly $600,000 on the training. The courses are offered by the controversial Pacific Educational Group, which teaches schools to treat white and minority students differently. According to the report, the organization, quote, teaches black kids are less likely to respond to fundamental ideas like working hard to achieve success or being on time for school or work because those ideas are supposedly foreign to African American culture. You know what? Juan Williams put this best. This is tragically insulting. But more importantly, and Jedediah, I'm going to come to you first because you spent a lot of years in academia. More importantly, this breaches the learning process.
Oh, sure. I mean, this is when people talk about throwing money at education. The liberals are always saying, well, we need to devote more money to education. Why? So we can do more of this and kids can come out and still not learn how to read and write. Mm-hmm. This is horrible. You're grouping, first of all people of a race into one group as if all white people, all African American people act the same. Kids come from different households. They have different backgrounds. They're all going to respond differently. This is absurd. And also, you're setting up the expectation of failure for some students. You're telling them basically, well, we expect you to not arrive to class on time because you're African American, you have some cultural link to that. That is absolutely insane. I think parents should complain. And even if you're not a parent, I would urge you to complain about this because this is tax dollars. Everybody is paying for this nonsense. Mm-hmm. Complain about it.
And one of the things that we know is that this large social inequality between the rich and families with much more resources and the poor elements of society seems to replicate itself across generations. So if we label this first group Generation 1 and the second group Generation 2, a large group of people who had rich parents tend to end up pretty wealthy themselves, and people who had poorer parents tend to end up poor. Now, this is actually a process that's called social reproduction. And what social reproduction means is that we are reproducing the social inequality across generations. And there must be reasons to help explain what's happening. Something that you would think would help to break all of this up. I'm going to bring our educational system in. Because one of the things you could say to me is that, hold on, doesn't our educational system give the poor a chance to break out of poverty and the rich, well, they presumably get good education anyway, right? But doesn't it give a chance to kind of shake up the system, put everyone on an equal footing? Well, think about this. Does our educational system value the culture of people from the lower classes as much as the culture of the people who have got much more resources, may come from the higher classes or more privileged classes?
Educational inequality is probably more than anything else the fundamental root of broader inequality. If we look at inequality in access to particular careers, inequality in income and wealth, inequality in the nature of political participation, all those things are mitigated by equalizing the skills that education produces, not only the academic skills, but the dispositions, the frames of minds, the conscientiousness, the diligence, the sense of agency. And so I think there is nothing more important we could do to produce the type of society we want than to raise outcomes in the field of education, so that knowing somebody's race or ethnicity tells you nothing at all about what their test scores or grades or occupation might be.